The Hook, the silent encounter. The great alien city never slept. Skyscrapers of crystal and steel pierced the skies, glowing with light that never dimmed. Airships floated like silent whales above the skyline, their shadows drifting over the streets below. Inside one of the tallest towers lived one of the richest beings in the galaxy, an alien billionaire whose name carried power across star systems. Her estate was filled with machines, servants, and luxuries beyond imagination. Yet among all that wealth, one figure went unnoticed: a human janitor. The janitor moved quietly through the halls, his worn boots brushing against the polished floors. His hands were rough, his uniform plain, and his face tired. To the aliens, he was invisible, just another human worker. Nobody bowed to him. Nobody asked his name. He was there to sweep floors, fix broken lights, and keep the estate spotless. But he carried something no alien machine could copy: patience, warmth, and silent strength. One evening, as he pushed his cleaning cart down a golden hallway, he heard a faint sound. It was not the hum of machines or the clicking of alien attendants. It was softer, almost painful, a whimper. He paused, frowning, and followed the sound. At the end of the hall, near a massive window that looked out into the glowing city, he saw her, the billionaire's child. The child was small, fragile, and unlike others of her kind. Her legs were weak, her body trembling with effort. She struggled to reach a toy that had rolled across the floor. The alien caretakers, programmed for efficiency, stood at a distance. They did not bend down. They did not comfort her. Their orders were simple: observe, record, and keep her alive. Nothing more. The janitor's heart tightened. He had seen loneliness before, but this was different. This was a child drowning in silence. Without a second thought, he left his cart, knelt to the floor, and picked up the toy. He placed it gently in her hands, and when the child looked up with wide, uncertain eyes, he smiled. "Here you go," he said softly, his voice calm and kind. The child blinked. No one had spoken to her like that. Not the caretakers, not the servants, not even most of her own family. Her small fingers clutched the toy, and for the first time in weeks a smile tugged at her lips. The janitor did not stop there. He noticed the stains on her clothes, the dust near her chair, the crumbs left from a meal. Slowly, carefully, he cleaned around her. He brushed her hair back with gentle hands. He spoke to her, not with commands, not with pity, but with warmth. He told her stories in simple words about faraway places, about Earth, about laughter. The child's weak body shook, but this time it was with quiet giggles. What he didn't know was that someone was watching. High above, in her private chamber, the alien billionaire sat before a wall of holographic screens. She had seen many things in her life: alliances, broken, empires rise and fall, fortunes traded like sand. But she had never seen this: a human, a simple janitor, kneeling before her disabled child with no thought of reward, no hint of fear. Her eyes narrowed. To her kind, humans were useful only as laborers, cheap, expendable, replaceable. Yet here was one, acting as if her heir was his own blood, acting as if compassion mattered more than rank. She leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. "Why?" she whispered to herself. Why would a lesser being do this? Down below, the janitor did not see her. He only saw the child, who now clutched his sleeve as if afraid he would leave. He did not know his small act was being recorded, broadcasted to hidden rooms, judged by eyes more powerful than entire armies. And yet, in that quiet moment, something stirred, something fragile but unstoppable. For kindness, once seen, could never be unseen. The billionaire rose from her seat. Her guards turned to her, awaiting orders. She said nothing. She only watched the screen as the janitor picked up the child, holding her carefully so she could reach higher shelves and see the glowing city through the window. The child's laughter echoed in the hall. The janitor smiled, and the billionaire, for the first time in her life, felt a strange unease in her chest. It was the beginning of something she could not control, and deep within her heart, though she would never admit it aloud, she knew. This single moment might change everything. The reaction, a billionaire's dilemma. The following morning, the estate was alive with whispers. Servants spoke in hushed tones. The alien child, once silent and withdrawn, had laughed. Laughed, something no one in the household had ever heard. The sound traveled through corridors like forbidden music, leaving confusion and unease behind. Billionaire did not sleep that night. She replayed the footage again and again. The image of the human janitor kneeling, smiling, speaking with warmth, it burned in her mind. His actions defied every law of her world. Her society valued power, not compassion. Weakness was to be hidden, not healed. Yet the janitor had done what no one else dared. By midday, she summoned him. The janitor was dragged into her grand chamber, its walls covered with glowing crystals and symbols of her wealth. He stood awkwardly on the polished floor, his head slightly bowed, holding his cap nervously. Before him, the billionaire sat upon a throne carved from living stone, her piercing eyes fixed on him like knives. "You," she said, her voice low but sharp. "You touched my child." The janitor swallowed hard. He had expected this moment. Perhaps he would be fired, perhaps worse. Humans had been punished for less, yet he did not tremble. He lifted his head slowly, meeting her gaze. "Yes," he said simply. "I touched her. She needed help." Her eyes narrowed. "You dared without permission. Do you not fear me? Do you not fear what I can do?" "I fear many things," the janitor admitted, his voice steady. "But not kindness. No child should be left alone. Not yours, not anyone's." His words cut deeper than any weapon. The guards in the room shifted uncomfortably. The air grew heavy with silence. The billionaire leaned forward, studying him. She had faced rivals who threatened her fortune. She had silenced enemies who spoke against her empire. But this human, this simple worker, he did not fight her with blades or lies. He fought her with truth. "You speak as if my heir belongs to you," she hissed. The janitor shook his head. "No, she belongs to herself. But if no one will stand by her, then I will." The child, drawn by the voices, appeared at the edge of the chamber, clinging to a mechanical walker. Her weak legs shook as she shuffled closer, her wide eyes searching for the janitor. When she saw him, her face lit with joy. She let go of the walker, stumbling toward him. The guards moved, but the billionaire raised her hand, stopping them. The child reached the janitor and grasped his hand. Her small fingers curled tightly around his, refusing to let go. The billionaire's chest tightened. For years, no one, not family, not servants, had been able to comfort the child. And now here was a human, a janitor, achieving in one night what all her wealth could not buy. Her pride battled with something she did not recognize. Fear, awe, or was it something more dangerous? Respect? "Stay," she finally commanded, her voice trembling with an emotion she could not name. "Stay by her side." The janitor blinked. He had expected punishment. Instead, he had been given trust. But trust from someone like her was not a gift. It was a weapon. He could feel the eyes of the guards on him, the weight of unseen cameras, recording every move. From that moment, he was no longer invisible. Across the estate, whispers grew louder. Servants gossiped about the human who now walked beside the heir. Alien nobles who visited the mansion noticed him, their brows raised in disbelief. Some laughed at the billionaire's strange decision. Others muttered in anger, claiming she had disgraced her bloodline by allowing a human to touch her heir. But she ignored them. Each day she watched from the shadows as her child's laughter grew louder, her small body growing stronger under the janitor's care. For the first time, the billionaire felt hope. Yet hope was dangerous. Beyond her estate, rival billionaires caught wind of the scandal. In the upper halls of power, they whispered, "Why would she trust a human with her child? What is she hiding?" They feared it was more than kindness. They feared it was strategy, that perhaps humans carried some secret strength, one that could unbalance the empire itself. The janitor had no idea of the storm forming above him. To him, there was only the child. He spent his nights mending her, broken toys, his mornings teaching her simple games, his days speaking words that machines could never understand. He gave her not wealth, not knowledge, but something the galaxy had forgotten: comfort. And with every act, the line grew thinner between loyalty and rebellion. Because somewhere deep inside, the billionaire knew. This was no longer about her child. This was about humanity itself, and soon the galaxy would have no choice but to react. The turning point, whispers across the stars. The news did not stay inside the estate. In a city that thrived on gossip and power, nothing remained hidden for long. A simple rumor began to spread. The richest alien in the empire had allowed a human janitor to care for her child. At first, the whispers were soft, almost laughable, but soon they grew louder, carried from merchant ships to trading halls, from private clubs to imperial courts. "Is it true?" nobles asked. "Has she lost her mind?" "Why a human?" others sneered. "Are her people not enough?" Some mocked her, saying she was desperate, blinded by weakness. But others were unsettled. They had seen the footage, the child smiling, laughing, reaching for the human's hand. For many, that image was more dangerous than a weapon. In the lower districts, where humans lived in crowded quarters and were treated as disposable workers, the story spread like fire. They whispered of the janitor who had stood before power and spoken with honesty. They whispered of the child who found hope in his hands. For the first time, humans dared to imagine something greater, that their kindness, often mocked, could shake the very pillars of alien society. The billionaire herself felt the storm closing in. In private meetings, her rivals questioned her sanity. In galactic forums, debates sparked. Were humans truly different? Could they be more than laborers? She should have silenced it. That would have been the safe path. But instead, she allowed the janitor to remain. Each day she watched as her child grew stronger, not in body alone, but in spirit. The child, once silent, now asked questions, told stories, and even defied her caretakers with a newfound spark. And with every change in her air, the billionaire's resolve deepened. But not everyone saw it as a miracle. To some, it was a threat. One evening, the janitor walked the child through the estate's garden, teaching her how to water flowers by hand instead of relying on drones. The sky above shimmered with stars, and for a brief moment, peace surrounded them. Yet hidden beyond the walls, cameras hovered, recording every movement. The footage was sent across the empire, fueling the fire. On alien broadcast screens, citizens saw a simple human kneeling, guiding the heir's trembling hands as water spilled over glowing plants. The commentators mocked him, called him primitive, called his ways useless. But millions of others saw something different, a strength no machine possessed, a strength of heart. It was a dangerous image. In the halls of power, the whispers turned into plans. Rival billionaires met in secret chambers, their voices sharp and cold. "This human is dangerous." "He is not dangerous," another replied. "He is too human. That is the danger. If the people believe kindness is strength, our power will crumble. And if her heir grows to rule with this human by her side, what happens then?" They all knew the answer. Change. A change that could sweep away the old order, built on pride and cruelty. So they began to plot. The janitor knew nothing of this. To him, each day was simple. He cleaned floors, told the child stories, and made her laugh. Yet he felt the tension growing. Servants who once ignored him now stared. Guards whispered when he passed. Even the child noticed. "Why are they afraid?" "Of you?" she asked one morning, her voice small. The janitor knelt beside her, brushing dust from her sleeve. "They are not afraid of me," he said gently. "They are afraid of what kindness can do." The child tilted her head, trying to understand. "But kindness is good." He smiled. "Yes, that is why they fear it." That night, the billionaire stood on her balcony, gazing out at the city lights. Her advisors begged her to remove the human before it was too late. They warned her of scandal, of rebellion, of losing her place among the great families. But in her heart, she remembered the sound of her child's laughter, the one thing her fortune had never bought, and she made her choice. "Let them whisper," she said coldly. "Let them fear. I will not take him away." Her words spread like thunder. Across the empire, some called her brave, others called her foolish. But one truth became clear. The galaxy was no longer the same. The janitor's simple act of kindness had become something larger. It was no longer just about a child. It was about humanity. And soon the galaxy would be forced to decide. Would they crush this spark, or would they let it burn? The trial of pride, enemies strike back. The storm finally broke. What began as whispers turned into demands. Rival billionaires, jealous of her influence, gathered in the high court of the empire. Their voices echoed like thunder across the chamber, watched by millions through holographic broadcasts. They did not attack the billionaire directly. No, they attacked the weakest link, the human janitor. "This man is a danger," one declared, his voice filled with venom. "He poisons the child with foreign ideas. He corrupts the air with human weakness. He dares to step where only blood should stand," another accused. "If we allow this, our empire will collapse." The court called for a trial, not a fair one, but a show. A trial meant to humiliate the human, to destroy the billionaire's growing defiance. The galaxy watched eagerly. The janitor stood at the center of a grand hall, far larger than any place he had ever seen. The ceiling glittered with starlight, but the air was heavy with hostility. Around him, alien nobles glared, their eyes sharp with disdain. Guards flanked every corner, weapons humming with power. The billionaire sat on her throne at the edge of the chamber, her expression unreadable. Her child was forbidden to attend. The first voice rose from the shadows. "You are nothing but a cleaner," the prosecutor sneered. "Why did you touch the heir of the empire's wealthiest house?" The janitor stood tall, though his clothes were plain and his hands calloused. His voice was calm. "Because she needed help, and no one else would give it." Gasps rippled through the hall. Such simple words, yet they struck harder than any weapon. The prosecutor's eyes narrowed. "And what did you hope to gain? Wealth? Power? Favor?" The janitor shook his head. "Nothing. Kindness does not ask for payment." Laughter broke, from the nobles, sharp and cruel. "Kindness?" one scoffed. "A word for the weak, a tool of slaves." But others shifted uncomfortably. Deep inside, even the proudest alien could not ignore the truth in his voice. The trial dragged on. Accusations piled high, each meant to crush him. They claimed he sought to manipulate the child. They claimed humans carried dangerous instincts. They painted him as a threat to the empire. Finally, the prosecutor raised his hand. This human must be removed, exiled, perhaps even executed, for the safety of our people. The hall grew silent. Every eye turned to the janitor, waiting for his defense. He looked at them all, not with fear, but with steady resolve. "I cleaned floors because no one else would," he said slowly. "I cared for the child because no one else did. If that is a crime, then I stand guilty." His words echoed through the chamber like a hammer strike, and then something happened that no one expected. The doors burst open. Guards rushed to stop her, but the child stumbled into the hall, her frail body trembling. She had escaped her attendants. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice rang clear as she cried out, "No, he is my friend, don't take him away." The hall froze. Nobles stared horrified as the heir of the empire's richest family clung to a human janitor before the entire galaxy. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the child's shaking hands wrapped around his arm, her desperate sobs echoing through the chamber. The prosecutor sputtered, This is manipulation. He made her do this." But no one believed him. The truth was in the child's eyes, in her broken voice, in the way she refused to let go. The billionaire finally rose. Her cloak swept across the floor as she walked to the center of the hall. Every step echoed like a drumbeat. She looked at the janitor, then at her rivals. Her voice was cold, sharp, and unyielding. "You call him weak," she said. "Yet he gave my child what none of you could. Hope, you call him dangerous. Yes, he is dangerous. Not because of weapons, not because of power, but because he shows us what we lack." Her gaze swept the chamber. "You fear him because he proves that humans are not beneath us. They are what we should be, strong not in pride, but in heart." The silence that followed was unbearable. Nobles shifted, torn between fury and shame. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The prosecutor tried to speak again, but his words died under the weight of her glare. In that moment, the trial collapsed. It was no longer about guilt or innocence. It was about something far greater, the question of what humanity truly was, and the answer was now carved into the hearts of everyone watching. The response that shook the galaxy. Humanity's mark. The trial chamber had fallen silent. The child's cries still echoed in the air, louder than any speech or accusation. The janitor stood unmoving, the child clinging to his sleeve, while the galaxy's most powerful being stared, uncertain for the first time in centuries. The prosecutor tried to regain control, slamming his staff against the floor. "This is a spectacle," he shouted, "a trick of emotion. Are we to let a child's feelings decide the fate of an empire?" But his words felt empty, too sharp, too cold, against the warmth everyone had just witnessed. The billionaire raised her hand, silencing the room. Her voice, calm but heavy with authority, carried through the chamber. "You fear a human," she said, her eyes locked on her rivals. "But what you truly fear is the truth he reveals about us." The nobles shifted uneasily. "We call ourselves strong," she continued, her tone sharpening. "We build empires. We hoard wealth. We crush weakness. And yet, when my child cried, not one of you stepped forward, not one. Machines obeyed, servants obeyed, but none cared. None, except him." Her words cut deep. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath, broadcasting her defiance to every corner of the galaxy. The janitor lowered his head, but the billionaire turned to him. "You stood where none dared. You gave my child something I could not. You gave her humanity." Then, to the shock of all, she placed her hand upon his shoulder, not as a master to a servant, but as an equal. From the crowd, gasps erupted. Some nobles rose in outrage, their faces twisted in fury. But their voices were drowned out by something greater. The people watching across the galaxy. In cities, in stations, in distant colonies, beings of every race saw the moment. For the first time, they saw humanity not as laborers or tools, but as something far more dangerous, a force that could not be measured in weapons or wealth. A force of heart. The prosecutor shouted again, desperate. "This cannot stand. If humans rise, our empire will fall." The billionaire's gaze turned to him, cold as ice. "No. If humans rise, we may finally learn what true strength is." The chamber erupted into chaos. Some nobles screamed for her removal. Others shouted for exile, but their voices were drowned beneath the growing roar of the people beyond. Across the stars, millions spoke one word: humanity. The janitor felt the child's hand squeeze his tighter. Her trembling voice whispered, "Don't leave me." He knelt, meeting her eyes. "I'm not going anywhere." And in that moment, the galaxy saw a truth it could no longer deny. Strength was not measured in power, but in compassion. In the weeks that followed, the empire trembled. Rivals plotted, but their words fell on deaf ears. Citizens across systems repeated the story of the janitor. Soldiers, workers, even nobles' children whispered it in secret. The image of a child clinging to a human had burned itself into history. The billionaire declared the janitor not a servant, but guardian of her heir. The title was mocked at first, until others began to follow. Soon, more humans were placed, in roles once thought impossible: advisors, guardians, teachers. The shift was small but unstoppable. In the dark corners of the galaxy, enemies muttered with fear. If this was the strength of one human, what would happen if all of Earth stood together? The janitor returned to his simple duties. He still cleaned, still worked with his hands, but now he was never invisible. Wherever he went, eyes followed, some with hatred, some with awe. One night, as he stood with the child watching the stars beyond the balcony, she asked quietly, "Why do they look at you like that?" He smiled faintly. "Because I am only human. And sometimes being human is enough to change everything." The child leaned against him, her laughter soft. In that moment, under the vast night sky, it was clear. Empires could rise and fall, wealth could vanish, power could crumble. But a single act of kindness could echo across the stars, and so it did forever.